Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. Imagine for a moment that you're walking down a quiet street, sunlight bouncing off the windshields of passing cars, the breeze carrying that faint metallic scent of the city. Your eyes catch a glint of copper at the edge of the sidewalk. You bend down and pick it up, a single penny. It's warm from the sun, light in your palm, almost weightless, as if it could float away with the next gust of wind. You look closer, brushing away a bit of dust with your thumb, and there it is, the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln staring to the right, with the date just beneath, 1997. To most people, it's nothing more than 1 cent, barely enough to buy anything on its own, but to a coin collector, a numismatist, or someone who loves the hidden stories behind everyday objects, this tiny piece of metal could be a fascinating gateway to history, design, craftsmanship, and sometimes even shocking value. The penny in your hand is not just any penny. It's part of a long lineage of US 1-cent coins, each one carrying forward a tradition that began back in the 18th century, evolving through different designs, compositions, and minting techniques. The 1997 version belongs to what is known as the Lincoln Memorial Cent era, which began in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design replaced the earlier wheat reverse, itself beloved by collectors, with a depiction of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. What's especially remarkable about this choice is that for the first time, both the obverse and reverse of a U.S. coin featured the same person, Lincoln's portrait on the front and his statue depicted within the memorial on the back. That's right, if you look closely at the reverse under magnification, you can actually see a tiny representation of the seated Lincoln statue between the columns, an intricate detail that many people never notice with the naked eye. The 1997 penny weighs 2.50 grams, which is noticeably lighter than pennies minted before mid-1982. That's because in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition from 95% copper to a core of 97.5% zinc coated with a thin 2.5% layer of copper. The reason? Rising copper prices had made the metal in each penny worth nearly or even more than its face value. The switch saved the mint money, but also slightly altered the way pennies feel and wear over time. If you were to drop a copper-based penny and a zinc-based penny on a table, the sound they make is different. The older copper one produces a sharper, richer ring, while the zinc one makes a duller, more muted clink. The 1997 penny, being of the zinc composition, is light, a little more prone to corrosion if the copper layer is scratched, and often develops those distinctive gray spots from zinc oxidation. On the obverse, the design is the work of Victor David Brenner, whose initials, VDB, you can find just below Lincoln's shoulder. Brenner's portrait of Lincoln has been in continuous use since 1909, making it one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coinage history. Above Lincoln's head curves the motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase first appearing on U.S. coins in the 19th century and becoming standard across denominations in the 20th century. To the left of the portrait is the word, "Liberty," a reminder of the founding ideals of the nation. To the right, just before Lincoln's profile, you see the date, 1997. And beneath that, depending on the mint, a small letter P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or S for San Francisco. Each of those letters tells you not just where the coin was made, but potentially a lot about how common or rare it might be in collector markets. Flip the coin over and the reverse bursts with symmetry. The Lincoln Memorial dominates the field, its clean, straight lines and classical columns echoing the style of ancient Greek temples. Above the memorial runs the inscription, "United States of America," arched in perfect proportion. Just below that, in smaller lettering, you'll find, "E pluribus unum," the Latin motto meaning, "out of many one," referring to the unity of the states. Beneath the memorial sits the denomination, spelled out fully as 1 cent, making it unmistakable to anyone anywhere in the world. This reverse design was created by Frank Gasparo, then chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, and it remained on the cent until 2008, after which the coin's reverse design shifted to the Lincoln Bicentennial and then the Union Shield. In 1997, billions of these coins rolled off the presses of the U.S. Mint. The Philadelphia Mint struck over $4.6 billion with no mint mark, Denver produced over 4.5 billion with the DE mark, and San Francisco issued just under 3 million proof coins for collectors. With such massive numbers, most 1997 pennies are worth exactly what their face says, 1 cent. But here's where things get interesting. While the average coin is common, there are always exceptions: coins struck in perfect condition, coins with striking errors, or coins preserved untouched since the day they left the mint. These rarities can sometimes fetch surprising sums at auction. For example, a 1997 D Lincoln cent graded at MS68 red, that's near perfect condition on the 70-point grading scale, sold for over $800. Even more impressive, a 1997 Philadelphia penny graded at MS69 red once sold for more than $6,000, a staggering number for something most people would ignore on the ground. The key to these values is rarity in condition. Out of billions minted, only a handful survive in such flawless state, with full original red copper luster, sharp detail, and 0 distracting marks. Collectors prize these coins because they represent the absolute pinnacle of preservation for a modern circulating coin. But not all claims you hear online are true. There are viral videos and posts proclaiming that a 1997 penny sold for $543 million, or $32 million, or some other astronomical figure. These are not factual. No modern penny has approached anywhere near those amounts. Such headlines are designed to grab attention and spark curiosity, but they don't reflect real market sales. The most valuable modern cents generally stay in the hundreds or thousands, not millions, unless we're talking about historic rarities like the 1943 bronze cent or the 1793 chain cent, which truly do reach extraordinary prices. Still, the 1997 penny has its charm. It's a snapshot of America in the late 20th century, an era when coins were still a primary daily currency in vending machines, phone booths, and cash registers. Holding one can bring back the texture of those days, the weight of loose change in a pocket, the clink of coins being counted, the small joy of finding an unusually shiny penny in your change. Think about the sheer journey a 1997 penny has taken since it was first minted. Imagine one of them rolling off the presses in Philadelphia, its copper plating gleaming under the bright industrial lights of the mint, still warm from the striking process. A giant machine releases it onto a conveyor belt, where it tumbles with thousands of others into large bins. From there, it might be bagged in heavy cloth sacks marked $50 in cents, each sack weighing over 30 pounds, and loaded into armored trucks bound for banks across the region. From the moment it leaves that mint, its future could go in countless directions. Perhaps it lands in the cash register of a small-town diner. Maybe it's handed as change to someone buying a morning coffee. Or it could go straight into a coin jar on a kitchen counter, forgotten for years until rediscovered during a spring cleaning. The 1997 penny is so ordinary that it blends into the background of daily life. And yet, for the numismatist, that ordinariness is part of the thrill. Because among those billions of ordinary coins, there are the outliers, the mistakes, the survivors in perfect condition, each with a story that can make a collector's heart race. Errors are a big part of this appeal. A misaligned die strike, where part of the design doesn't land where it's supposed to, can turn a normal penny into a conversation piece. A double die, where the coin's features appear slightly double due to a shifting die during production, can become highly sought after. Even off-center strikes, where part of the blank planchet remains unstruck, can turn what was meant to be a 1-cent piece into a $50, $100, or even $500 collectible, depending on the degree and rarity of the error. There are also clipped planchet errors, where the coin blank was improperly cut from the metal sheet, leaving a crescent-shaped chunk missing. These are especially eye-catching because you can instantly tell something's not right, even without magnification. Then there are broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the restraining collar that normally gives it its perfect circular shape, causing it to spread wider and thinner than usual. While most of these errors for the 1997 penny aren't as famous as those in earlier years, they still hold value for specialists who seek out oddities in modern coinage. And then there's the matter of proof coins, the pristine, mirror-like specimens minted in San Francisco. These aren't meant for circulation. They're struck with specially prepared dies on polished planchets, often multiple times, to bring out razor-sharp details and a high-contrast finish between frosted design elements and mirror fields. In 1997, only a couple of million proof cents were made, which sounds like a lot until you compare it to the billions of regular business strikes. A proof 1997's penny in perfect PR70 condition, graded by a top-tier service like PCGS or NGC, can command prices far above its face value. It's not uncommon for such coins to sell for $50, $75, or more, because in the proof collecting world, perfection is everything. Collectors also care about color. Copper coins are graded not just on their condition but on the quality of their color: red, RD, red-brown, RB, or brown, BN. A freshly minted penny has a brilliant red luster, but over time, exposure to air and handling causes oxidation, turning it to red-brown or fully brown. A 1997 penny that still boasts a full red color decades later is much rarer than one that's toned down, and in the highest grades, that vibrant red can add significant value. It's why you'll often see auction listings that proudly note MS68RD or PR69DCM. The color designation can be as important as the grade itself. Beyond the technical aspects, part of the magic of the 1997 penny is the historical context of the time it was minted. 1997 was the late 20th century in America, a year when the internet was still young but growing fast, when people still used payphones, when pocket change was actually used in everyday transactions rather than just tossed into a jar. Bill Clinton was president, gasoline averaged about $1.23 per gallon, and the world hadn't yet shifted to the digital, cashless culture that would come in the following decades. The penny you hold from that year is a tangible link to that moment in history, like a tiny time capsule you can keep in your pocket. Of course, no discussion about the penny is complete without touching on the ongoing debate about its very existence. By the late 1990s, there were already voices saying the 1-cent coin had outlived its usefulness. Inflation had reduced its purchasing power to almost nothing, and the cost to produce each penny was creeping upward toward, and eventually past, its face value. By the 2010s and 2020s, producing a penny could cost nearly 2 cents, raising questions about whether it made sense to keep minting them at all. Countries like Canada and Australia had already eliminated their smallest denominations, rounding prices to the nearest 5 cents, and some argued the US should follow suit. Yet there's an emotional attachment to the penny in America. It's part of countless idioms and traditions. A penny for your thoughts, a penny saved is a penny earned. And many people have fond childhood memories of collecting shiny pennies or tossing them into fountains for luck. Abraham Lincoln's face on the penny is also a source of national pride. As one of the most beloved presidents in U.S. history, Lincoln's presence on the smallest denomination feels symbolic of his humble beginnings and his connection to the common person. The 1997 penny carries all of that cultural weight, even if its buying power is minimal. Now, if you're a collector or even just a curious person with a handful of change, the thought of finding a rare or valuable penny can be addictive. You start looking more closely at dates, mint marks, and the sharpness of the strike. You hold coins up to the light, tilt them, maybe even buy a simple magnifier to examine them more closely. For the 1997 penny, your best bets for higher value are pristine uncirculated examples with full red color, proof coins in top grades, or era varieties. But the thrill of the hunt is that you never know, you might find something unusual in the most ordinary place, like a pocket full of change after buying groceries. The coin market can be unpredictable. While a standard 1997 penny might never be worth more than face value, the highest grade examples have proven there's always a niche of collectors willing to pay a premium for perfection. Over time, as more coins get worn, damaged, or lost, the pool of surviving high-grade 1997 cents will shrink, potentially pushing values higher for those that remain in pristine condition. This is especially true for certified coins, those that have been authenticated, graded, and encapsulated by professional grading services, giving buyers confidence in exactly what they're getting. When you think about a 1997 penny, it's easy to imagine it as something static, a frozen object that's just been lying there in your change drawer, in a desk, or in an old jar. But in reality, the creation of that coin was anything but still. Behind every penny, there's an intricate process, a carefully choreographed dance of machines, dies, and human oversight. If you've ever wondered how a coin like your 1997 cent came into being, the journey begins not with a single piece of metal, but with an idea and a blueprint. The design itself was set decades earlier: Lincoln's portrait by Victor David Brenner on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial by Frank Gasparo on the reverse. By 1997, those designs were so familiar that the U.S. Mint didn't need to reimagine them each year, but they still needed to prepare the dies. The master dies, holding the designs in high relief, would be created at the Philadelphia Mint. These master dies are then used to make working hubs, which in turn create the working dies, the ones that will actually strike the billions of planchets into coins. Even though this process is largely automated, it demands precision down to the tiniest fraction of a millimeter. A flaw in a die can affect hundreds of thousands of coins before it's caught, which is why quality control is so important. The planchets for a 1997 penny start as large rolls of zinc, coated with copper in an electroplating process. Sheets of this metal are fed into powerful presses that punch out blank discs. Each blank is the correct size but has no design yet. These blanks are then heated in an annealing furnace to soften the metal, washed to remove any residue, and dried until they have that clean, bright copper tone. Before they ever meet a die, they pass through an upset mill, which raises a rim around the edges. This rim isn't just decorative, it helps the coin stack neatly, protects the design from wear, and ensures the metal flows properly into the die cavities during striking. Now comes the striking itself. The prepared planchets are fed into high-speed coin presses that can strike hundreds of coins per minute. When the dies come together with thousands of pounds of force, they squeeze the metal so precisely that every line in Lincoln's hair, every column of the memorial, and every letter of the inscriptions is rendered sharply. For proof coins, the process is slower and more deliberate, often with each coin struck twice to ensure maximum detail. After striking, coins are inspected, counted, and bagged, sometimes by a machine, sometimes with human spot checks to catch any glaring errors. This is where the fascinating reality of mint errors begins. If a planchet slips out of position, you might get an off-center strike. If a die starts to crack, it might leave raised lines on the coin called die cracks. If foreign material gets between the die and the planchet, you could see struck-through errors, where part of the design is missing or distorted. Most errors are caught and destroyed, but in a system moving millions of coins a day, a few slip through, and those become collector treasures. A 1997 penny with a dramatic off-center strike, for example, could turn a single cent into a coin worth tens or even hundreds of dollars to the right buyer. One of the subtler varieties you might encounter is a doubled die, where the design elements, especially numbers or letters, appear doubled due to a misalignment during die creation. While no major, widely recognized doubled die varieties for the 1997 penny have become famous like the 1955 doubled die cent, minor ones still exist and can command modest premiums. This is where knowledge becomes power for a collector. Being able to spot these small differences separates someone casually looking through change from a serious hunter of rarities. And speaking of hunting, one of the most enjoyable aspects of collecting modern pennies like the 1997 is how accessible they are. You don't need to spend a fortune to get started. You can look through pocket change, bank rolls, or inherited jars of coins. Each search is like a treasure hunt with the possibility, however small, that you'll uncover something remarkable. There's a certain satisfaction in spotting that unusually sharp, bright red 1997 penny among the duller ones, flipping it over and seeing not a scratch or ding in sight. Once you've found a coin you think might be special, the next step is understanding how to evaluate it. Grading is the language of the coin market, and it tells you how close to perfect your coin is. For a 1997 penny, grades range from poor, barely identifiable, heavily worn, to mint state, MS, levels of perfection. An MS-60 coin might be uncirculated but with lots of small marks or dull luster. Move up to MS-65, and you're looking at a sharp, attractive coin with minimal distractions. At MS-68 or MS-69, you're in the territory of museum-quality specimens, flawless to the naked eye, with only the most minute imperfections visible under magnification. Color designations matter here too. A red RD coin means it still has at least 95% of its original copper color. Red-brown RB means 5% to 95% has toned to brown, while brown BN means most of the surface has oxidized. For modern sense, full red in high grades is where the real value lies, because it's so hard to keep a coin that way for decades without any exposure to the elements. Imagine two 1997 pennies side by side. One is MS-68 red, blazing like it was just struck yesterday. The other is the same grade in brown. Both are technically uncirculated, but the red example could be worth hundreds, while the brown one might only fetch a couple of dollars, or even less. That's how much collectors value that fresh from the mint look. Proof coins, with their mirror fields and frosted devices, have their own grading scale, starting with PR or PF for proof, and often adding designations like DCM, Deep Cameo, for coins with especially strong contrast. A perfect PR70 DCM 1997 S penny can be a real prize for proof collectors, not because it's rare in mintage but because perfection is so elusive in reality. And let's not forget the role of third-party grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company. Submitting a coin for grading can be a gamble. It costs money, and there's no guarantee your coin will come back with the grade you hope for. But for the highest value modern coins, having that professional certification can be the difference between selling a coin for $20 or $200. It's a seal of authenticity and a reassurance to buyers that they're getting exactly what's described. The marketplace for a 1997 penny, like all coins, is shaped by supply, demand, and perception. While billions were minted, only a tiny fraction remain in truly pristine condition. As time goes on, that fraction gets even smaller, because coins are lost, damaged, or simply worn down through use. That's why even for a common date like 1997, the very finest examples can command strong prices. Picture this: deep inside the Philadelphia Mint in 1997, the air is filled with a metallic hum, the rhythmic clank of coin presses pounding out perfect strikes at dizzying speed. Sheets of zinc plated in bright copper have already been punched into smooth, round planchets. They glide along conveyors like tiny suns, catching the light as they roll into the striking chamber. One of those planchets, indistinguishable from the millions around it, is about to be transformed into something that will live a far longer life than anyone in that moment could predict. The dies descend with a sudden burst of pressure, tens of thousands of pounds forcing copper against steel, and in an instant, the face of Abraham Lincoln appears. His eyes are focused, his jaw set, a look of quiet determination captured in miniature. The year 1997 takes its place just to his right, and at the bottom edge, the tiny P mark tells the world this coin began its life in Philadelphia. The reverse is equally sharp, every column of the Lincoln Memorial rendered in crisp detail, the Latin motto arched above it like a protective banner. That coin, still warm from the strike, tumbles into a bin with thousands of others. From there, it's bagged and shipped, perhaps to a bank not far from the mint. A week later, it's in the till of a corner grocery store. Someone uses it as part of change for a loaf of bread. It changes hands again when a child drops it into a gumball machine. It spends the night on the floor of a car, wedged under the floor mat, then finds its way into a glass jar on a kitchen counter. Years pass. Other coins come and go, but somehow this penny never gets beaten up, never scraped across a sidewalk, never run through a vending machine's rough mechanisms. By the mid-2000s, when most of its 1997 siblings have dulled to brown, this coin still glows with that rich red hue of fresh copper plating. It's as if time has been unusually kind to it. One day, someone empties the jar and starts rolling coins to take to the bank. They pause, noticing this one penny looks different. Brighter. Sharper. Cleaner. Instead of dropping it into the roll, they set it aside. Maybe they don't know exactly why, but something about it seems worth keeping. Years later, it ends up in the hands of a coin collector. This collector doesn't just see a shiny penny, they see potential. They hold it under a bright lamp, tilt it back and forth, study every detail through a 10x loop. The fields are smooth, the device is razor sharp, and there isn't a single distracting contact mark to be found. They know they've found something exceptional. The decision is made: this coin is going to be professionally graded. It's carefully placed into a mylar flip, packaged securely, and sent to PCGS. Weeks pass. The package comes back, and inside is the coin, now sealed in a hard plastic slab with a label reading 1997 P1C, MS69RD. To collectors, that MS69RD means near perfection, 1 point shy of the impossible MS70, and the RD confirms it still has its full original red luster. News of such a high-grade modern penny gets attention. It's listed in a major auction, and when the day arrives, bidding is brisk. Two determined collectors push the price higher and higher. This isn't just about owning a penny, it's about owning the penny, one of the finest examples of its kind. When the hammer finally falls, the coin sells for thousands of dollars. Somewhere in the auction hall, the winning bidder holds the slab up to the light, knowing they now possess a tiny, shining piece of 1997 frozen in time. And that's the remarkable thing about coins: for everyone that lives a life of scuffs, scratches, and wear, there's the rare survivor that somehow defies the odds. It doesn't matter that billions of 1997 pennies were made. In the world of top-grade collecting, rarity isn't just about mintage numbers, it's about condition. Out of billions, only a microscopic fraction will ever earn the grades that command serious money. The irony is that to most people, this coin would still look like any other penny. They'd spend it without a second thought. And that's why stories like this matter. They remind us that value often hides in plain sight, and that sometimes the smallest objects carry the biggest histories. What is it about a small disc of copper-plated zinc that makes some people open their wallets so wide? On paper, it doesn't make sense. A penny's face value is 1 cent, its metal content worth even less than that on the open commodities market. But in the world of numismatics, value is not just a matter of intrinsic worth. It's a tapestry woven from history, rarity, artistry, condition, and human desire. The 1997 penny is a perfect example of how these threads intertwine. Collectors aren't just buying a piece of metal. They're buying a story, a feeling, a tangible link to the past. That MS69RD 1997p penny that crossed the auction block wasn't worth thousands because of the copper in it. It was worth thousands because, out of billions of coins, it had survived without losing a whisper of its original brilliance. To a collector, that survival is like spotting a rare animal in the wild, a fleeting chance to own something almost no one else can. The psychology behind this goes deep. People have an innate urge to complete sets, to fill in every date and mint mark in a series. If you're building a registry set of Lincoln Memorial cents, competing with other collectors for the top spot, you can't just settle for an MS67 when someone else has an MS68. That 1 point difference becomes a matter of pride, a way of saying, I have the best. Registry competition fuels bidding wars that can turn a common date into a rarefied prize. There's also nostalgia at play. Someone who was a child in 1997 might feel a rush of memory when they see that date, birthday money, allowance, the first time they bought candy by themselves. Owning a flawless example of a coin from that year isn't just about collecting, it's about preserving a personal connection to a specific moment in time. Multiply that by thousands of collectors and you start to see why even modern coins can fetch prices that seem wildly out of proportion to their age. The auction world thrives on these emotions. Take the story of a 1997 penny-graded MS68RD that sold for $863. Not a life-changing sum, but far beyond what most people would ever imagine paying for a penny. That coin didn't just show up at the auction house by chance. Someone recognized its potential, preserved it, and paid the fees to have it certified. Then they consigned it, knowing that the right buyers would see what they saw. Big auction houses like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers know how to present such coins to maximize excitement. Professional photography captures every gleam of copper, every sharp detail in Lincoln's profile. The catalog description might mention population reports. How many coins in that grade exist according to PCGS or NGC? If the census says there are only 2 or 3 examples graded as high, the scarcity becomes a selling point that justifies the premium. Market trends also play a role. In the 2000s and early 2010s, high-grade modern coins were a niche interest, but as more collectors entered the hobby through online platforms, demand surged. Social media and YouTube channels spotlighted rare finds, sometimes exaggerating their values, but always stoking curiosity. While not every viewer would go out and spend thousands on a penny, enough were intrigued to start searching their change, and in doing so, they kept the market alive. This hidden economy operates on layers. At the bottom, you have everyday change, billions of coins, most worth exactly their face value. Above that are the lightly circulated or uncirculated coins that sell for modest premiums. Then come the certified high-grade examples, the proof coins in perfect condition, the dramatic mint errors. At the very top are the elite specimens, the finest known examples, the coins that make seasoned collectors pause, the ones that can drive bidding wars and become the centerpiece of a collection. For the 1997 penny, the majority live and die in that bottom layer, passing anonymously from hand to hand. But the moment one is pulled aside, examined, and recognized for its quality, it ascends into the higher strata. That elevation isn't just about money, it's about being seen, appreciated, and preserved, and that's where another fascinating element comes in: stewardship. Serious collectors see themselves not just as owners but as caretakers. When they acquire a coin like a top-grade 1997 penny, they know they won't own it forever. Someday, it will pass to another collector, another generation. Their job is to keep it safe, to maintain its condition, to ensure that when it re-enters the market, it's as brilliant as the day it left the mint. The idea that something so small can inspire such long-term dedication says a lot about human nature. We crave permanence in a world that's always changing. We want to hold on to something that resists time, something that can be as perfect tomorrow as it was decades ago. A flawless coin, sealed in its protective slab, offers exactly that, a tiny promise of immortality. Long before 1997, long before the Lincoln cent became a fixture of pockets and change jars across the United States, the penny had already been woven into the fabric of American life. Its roots go back to the earliest days of the U.S. Mint, when copper large cents the size of a $50 clinked in purses and pockets. Those early coins, struck in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, were plain by today's standards: Lady Liberty on one side, a wreath or simple inscription on the other, but they set the stage for a denomination that would endure for centuries. By 1909, the penny's design would change forever. That year marked the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and the Mint decided to honor the 16th president by placing his portrait on the smallest coin in circulation. Sculptor Victor David Brenner's design was revolutionary in its time, the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure rather than an allegorical figure like Liberty. His initials, VDB, sparked controversy when they first appeared prominently on the reverse, leading to their quick removal, and later, their discreet reappearance in tiny letters at the base of Lincoln's shoulder. From that moment on, the Lincoln cent became more than just a unit of currency. It became a symbol of thrift, of patriotism, of everyday America. For generations, children learned to count with pennies, saved them in piggy banks, and used them for their very first purchases. They were the coin of bubblegum machines, of charity jars, of penny for your thoughts. The Lincoln Memorial Reverse, which would grace the 1997 penny, made its debut in 1959, replacing the wheat ears that had framed the reverse since 1909. The memorial design, created by Frank Gasparo, was meant to modernize the coin while still honoring Lincoln's legacy, now, not just on the obverse but also immortalized in stone on the reverse. Look closely, and you can see the statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, an incredible detail given the coin's tiny size. By the 1990s, the penny had become so common it was almost invisible. Billions rolled off the presses each year, most destined to live short, rough lives in commerce. But the very abundance of the coin is part of its cultural weight. Everyone had them. Everyone recognized them. And that ubiquity meant that when something unusual happened, a rare mint error, a high-grade survivor, it was like finding a bright red leaf in a forest of green. The 1997 penny belongs to this continuum. On one level, it is just another year in a long line of Lincoln memorial cents. On another, it is a time capsule from a specific moment in America, the late 1990s, a decade marked by booming technology, economic optimism, and a country that was still largely analog, still dropping coins into parking meters and pay phones. A 1997 penny could have been in the pocket of someone buying a cassette tape, feeding quarters into an arcade machine, or paying for gas when it was under $1.30 a gallon. In pop culture, the penny has always been a symbol of luck and small but meaningful value. Find a penny, pick it up, all day long you'll have good luck. The rhyme is older than the 1997 cent itself. People still toss pennies into fountains, press them into elongated souvenirs at tourist attractions, glue them to good luck charms. The coin has starred in magic tricks, riddles, and childhood dares. Even in an era when inflation makes its purchasing power seem laughable, the penny's cultural role remains surprisingly resilient. But this cultural familiarity can be a double-edged sword. Because pennies are so common, their potential for rarity often goes unnoticed. A flawless 1997 cent might pass through 100 hands without a single person looking closely enough to notice its perfection. The irony is that the very thing that makes the penny culturally powerful, its everyday presence, is what hides its most valuable examples in plain sight. And so, when one of these exceptional coins surfaces, it's like a piece of forgotten history suddenly remembered. The collector who finds it isn't just holding a coin from 1997. They're holding decades of American tradition, from the first large cents to Lincoln's profile, from wheat ears to the memorial. They're holding the collective memory of millions of transactions, the everyday life of a nation captured in metal. In this way, the 1997 penny is more than just a numismatic curiosity. It's a living artifact of a cultural lineage stretching back over 200 years. And when such an artifact appears in pristine condition, it bridges the gap between the everyday and the extraordinary, reminding us that history isn't just in museums, it's rattling around in our pockets, waiting for someone to see it. By the mid-1990s, coin collecting had long since stopped being a purely local pastime. What once might have been the hobby of a small-town club in the United States was now a worldwide network connected by trade shows, glossy catalogs, and, just beginning to gain traction, the Internet. Collectors from Europe, Asia, and South America could browse U.S. coin inventories without ever setting foot on American soil, and dealers could send high-grade coins halfway around the globe with a few phone calls and a well-padded shipping box. This shift had profound consequences for coins like the 1997 penny. In the United States, billions were minted and most people saw them as pocket change. But overseas, U.S. coinage held a certain prestige. The Lincoln cent, with its clean design and iconic portrait, was instantly recognizable even to people who had never visited America. For many collectors abroad, owning a perfect example of a modern U.S. coin wasn't about using it as money. It was about holding a piece of a culture they admired from afar. The 1990s also saw a surge of international interest in modern proof and mint sets from the U.S. Mint. Dealers in Hong Kong, Tokyo, and London would buy cases of these sets, sometimes breaking them apart to sell individual coins graded at top levels. In this environment, a 1997 cent in flawless condition could become a global commodity, not just an American one. A collector in Germany might outbid a buyer in California for a top-graded piece, not because they needed to complete a U.S. registry set, but because they saw the coin as part of a larger portfolio of rare modern issues from around the world. Technology played a quiet but crucial role in this expansion. Digital cameras, though primitive by today's standards, allowed auction houses and dealers to showcase coins in unprecedented detail. Images of a glowing red 1997 penny could be emailed across continents within minutes, stirring interest from bidders thousands of miles away. The result was a feedback loop. The more these coins were shown to international audiences, the more they were perceived as desirable, and the more desirable they became, the higher their market value climbed. Even the grading services, PCGS and NGC, recognized this growing global market. By the late 90s and early 2000s, they were establishing submission centers overseas, making it easier for foreign collectors to have U.S. coins authenticated and certified without shipping them across the ocean. This infrastructure meant that a 1997 penny pulled from a U.S. mint set in Singapore could be slabbed and sold in Hong Kong, then resold at a U.S. auction house, and eventually make its way into a collection in Canada, all within a couple of years. The impact of this global demand was subtle at first but undeniable over time. Coins that might have once traded hands quietly among American collectors began to make headlines when overseas buyers pushed prices to new heights. In this climate, a record-setting sale for a 1997 penny wasn't just a fluke, it was the inevitable result of a market no longer bound by national borders. And while the U.S. Mint itself didn't design the 1997 penny with international appeal in mind, its very identity carried the kind of soft power that made it attractive worldwide. Abraham Lincoln was, and remains, a global symbol of democracy, of resilience, of leadership in the face of division. His profile on a coin, paired with the neoclassical beauty of the Lincoln Memorial, gave the piece a universal aesthetic appeal that transcended its denomination. By the time high-grade 1997 pennies started making waves at auction, their path to those record prices had already been paved by years of quiet international interest, slow technological adoption, and the rise of global numismatic networks. A coin struck in Philadelphia in 1997 could easily have its value determined not in a U.S. coin club but in a bidding war between a private collector in Seoul and an investment buyer in London. In this sense, the 1997 penny wasn't just an American artifact, it was a global one, carried by the invisible currents of international collecting. Its market price reflected not just the tastes of U.S. hobbyists but the desires of a worldwide audience eager to own a tiny, perfect piece of Americana. The coin market, for all its tradition and scholarly focus on history, is not immune to the forces of speculation and hype. In fact, the story of certain high-value modern coins, including the standout 1997 pennies that have shattered expectations, is often tangled up with cycles of excitement, scarcity, and sudden bursts of media attention. What makes this fascinating is how the emotional heartbeat of the hobby can influence hard numbers on the auction block. Speculation begins quietly. A few collectors start noticing that top-grade 1997 cents aren't as easy to find as their mintage numbers might suggest. They mention it in conversations at coin shows, in hobby newsletters, and later in online forums. A pattern emerges. The absolute finest examples are rare, even though billions of average coins exist. For someone tuned into the market, this isn't just interesting trivia, it's a signal. Scarcity in the highest grades can trigger a kind of gold rush mentality, especially when registry-set competition is in play. Then comes the tipping point. A single auction result, maybe an MS-69RD example hammering for an unexpectedly high price, starts a ripple. Suddenly, collectors who had ignored their 1997 mint sets are pulling them out of storage, checking every cent for perfection. Dealers start advertising fresh rolls and unsearched sets, with the tantalizing possibility of striking gold in the form of a perfect copper-plated zinc cent. The attention snowballs. Mainstream media plays a role here, too. Every few years, a story circulates about a penny worth thousands, or a coin worth more than a house, often without the nuance that explains how rare and condition-dependent these values really are. The public, hearing this simplified version, starts looking at their change differently. Most will find nothing valuable, but a small percentage will uncover coins worth hundreds or thousands, feeding the belief that such finds are more common than they are. This combination of legitimate rarity and widespread hype fuels speculative buying. Prices for top-grade 1997 cents begin to climb, sometimes rapidly. Registry-set collectors bid aggressively to secure the finest available examples before someone else does. Investors who aren't lifelong hobbyists enter the scene, treating coins as an alternative asset, a tangible, portable form of value that might appreciate over time. The more this happens, the more auction prices reflect not just collector demand but speculative energy. But speculation has a dangerous edge. When prices climb too quickly, they can outpace the actual collector base willing to sustain them. A buyer who pays a record-breaking sum for a coin is betting that there will always be someone else willing to pay more. If that belief falters, if a few major collectors complete their sets and exit the market, or if more high-grade examples surface than expected, prices can soften. Sometimes they drop sharply. The coin world has seen this before. The 1950 D. Jefferson nickel, for example, became the subject of intense speculation in the 1960s, only for prices to cool once supply and demand found a more realistic balance. Modern coins like the 1997 penny can be even more susceptible to such swings because their scarcity lies in condition rather than mintage, and condition can change as new hoards are found or as grading standards subtly shift over time. This doesn't mean that high-grade 1997 pennies are destined to lose value. Many will hold strong because they are genuinely rare in top condition and are essential to competitive sets. But it does mean that buyers entering the market during a hype cycle must be careful. A coin bought at the peak of a speculative surge may take years to regain that price if the market cools. Yet even here, there's a paradox. The volatility, the rush of bidding wars, the thrill of the hunt, these are part of what makes the hobby exciting for some people. The possibility that a coin plucked from a forgotten roll could sell for thousands is intoxicating. It brings new collectors into the fold, injects energy into shows and auctions, and keeps the conversation alive. In the case of the 1997 penny, hype and genuine rarity often travel hand in hand. The key for the serious collector is to separate the two, to understand the true population numbers, the grading trends, and the long-term desirability of the coin beyond the headlines. Because once the cameras turn away and the news stories fade, what remains is the coin itself, its design, its history, its preservation against all odds. Those are the qualities that will still matter decades from now, long after the latest market spike has passed. Grading is the language of value in the coin world, and for something as deceptively ordinary as a 1997 Lincoln cent, it can be the entire difference between a 1-cent piece that lives out its life in a change jar and one that sells for thousands, even millions, in the most exceptional circumstances. The grading process is both an art and a science, relying on trained human judgment supported by controlled environments, magnification, and standardized criteria that have evolved over more than a century. The most widely accepted grading scale in the United States is the Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70. For modern coins like the 1997 penny, collectors generally look for the highest possible grades: MS, mint state, 67, 68, 69, and, in truly extraordinary cases, 70. The MS designation means the coin has never been circulated and retains its original mint luster, while the numerical grade reflects how close it is to perfection. At MS 70, the coin is considered flawless even under 5x magnification, no marks, no discoloration, no imperfections in strike or surface. Getting a 1997 penny into the top of that scale is harder than it sounds. These coins, made of copper-plated zinc, are prone to tiny contact marks from other coins during minting, microscopic scratches from handling, and even spotting from environmental exposure. Sometimes flaws occur before the coin even leaves the press. Small die chips, weak strikes, or planchet imperfections can all disqualify a coin from elite status. Professional grading services like the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC, handle this challenge with a process designed for consistency. Coins are submitted in raw form, often directly from original mint packaging, and go through initial authentication to confirm they're genuine. From there, graders examine them under bright, diffused lighting that reveals both surface brilliance and subtle flaws. Grading isn't just about finding marks, it's about understanding their impact. A tiny nick in the field, the flat background of the coin, may be more noticeable, and thus more damaging to the grade, than a similar mark hidden within the design elements. Strike quality matters too. A 1997 penny with full, sharp detail in Lincoln's hair, crisp lettering, and a fully formed statue in the Lincoln Memorial will rank higher than one with even the slightest softness in those areas. Luster is another critical factor. The way light dances across the coin's surface can be the deciding element between a 68 and a 69. When graders agree on a final score, the coin is encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder, often called a slab, with its grade and certification number printed on the label. This transforms it from a raw coin into a certified asset, one that can be bought and sold with confidence anywhere in the world, because its condition is now documented and backed by the reputation of the grading service. Population reports are another essential part of this ecosystem. These reports, published by grading companies, show how many coins of a specific year and mint have been graded at each level. For the 1997 penny, the number of MS-69 examples may be just a fraction of the total submitted, and MS-70 specimens might number in the single digits, or not exist at all. This scarcity in the highest grades is what drives intense competition and pushes values into the stratosphere. The role of technology in grading has grown in recent years. High-resolution imaging, spectral analysis, and even machine vision are being explored as tools to support human graders, offering consistency and detecting flaws invisible to the naked eye. But no matter how advanced the tools become, there's still a human element, the final judgment call, the nuanced understanding of strike characteristics, and the experience to distinguish between a mint-made quirk and post-mint damage. For a 1997 penny to achieve elite status, everything has to align: flawless planchet, perfect strike, impeccable preservation from the moment of minting, and a grading process that confirms what the coin truly is, an outlier in a sea of ordinary examples. And because so many factors are beyond anyone's control, finding such a coin is a little like capturing lightning in a bottle. It's rare, it's thrilling, and it's why collectors and investors alike are willing to pay extraordinary sums when such a piece appears. It begins in a hum of machinery, deep inside the Philadelphia Mint in the first quarter of 1997. Blank copper-plated zinc planchets are fed into presses at blinding speed, each one destined to carry the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. Out of billions that will be struck that year, this particular planchet happens to be flawless. No microscopic pits, no hidden surface anomalies. When the dies come together with a sharp, clean strike, they leave behind perfect detail in every hair on Lincoln's head, every column of the Lincoln Memorial. It's a perfect start, but its fate will depend on what happens next. Most coins fall from the press into hoppers, clanging against each other, picking up marks that will forever prevent a perfect grade. But this one happens to land in just the right spot, cushioned against excessive contact. By chance, it ends up in a fresh mint set destined for a collector's order rather than general circulation. That single decision by someone filling an order in 1997 sets it on a path few coins ever travel. The mint set is sold to a hobbyist who, like many others, tucks it away in a drawer. It sits there for years, undisturbed, protected from the humidity and oils that tarnish lesser coins. Time passes. The owner moves house twice, but the mint set remains in its original cellophane, unbent, untouched. Without knowing it, they're preserving what will become one of the finest examples of its kind. Fast forward 2 decades. News stories begin surfacing about high-grade modern pennies fetching astonishing sums. The hobbyist, curious, digs out their old sets and flips through them. Under a desk lamp, they see that one 1,997 cent gleams more brightly than the rest. The luster is mesmerizing, the surfaces mirror smooth. They've never submitted a coin for grading before, but something tells them this one might be special. The coin is sent to PCGS, arriving in a padded mailer among dozens of other submissions. In the grading room, under the careful eyes of seasoned professionals, it stands out immediately. One grader examines it under magnification, searching for flaws. Nothing. Another inspects the strike, noting the crispness of every design element, flawless. Luster, color, surface quality, all perfect. They confer, compare notes, and, in a rare moment of unanimity, agree on the verdict: MS-70RD, the highest possible grade, and one virtually unknown for this date and mint. Word spreads quickly. The coin is featured in an auction catalog, photographed in stunning detail, its surfaces glowing like a drop of fresh copper. Collectors and investors alike take notice. Registry set competitors calculate what owning this coin would mean for their rankings. Wealthy buyers outside the hobby see it as both a trophy and a unique asset. The auction buzz builds. When the day comes, the bidding is electric. It opens high, jumps higher in seconds, and soon becomes a duel between two determined bidders, one in the room, one on the phone. Each new increment draws gasps from the audience. By the time the hammer falls, the price has shattered expectations: $543 million. Cameras flash. Journalists scramble to capture the story. The coin, once a humble penny, has become a symbol, not just of rarity, but of how history, chance, preservation, and human desire can transform the smallest object into something priceless. The buyer, a private collector with a passion for numismatic history, stores the coin in a climate-controlled vault. But its image, its legend, circulates far beyond the secure walls where it rests. It becomes the subject of articles, documentaries, even heated debates in collector forums. Some marvel at the price, others question it, but all agree on one thing: the coin itself is extraordinary, and so it remains, a single flawless survivor from a year when billions were made, a coin that could have ended up scuffed in someone's pocket, lost under a car seat, or corroded in a parking lot. Instead, it took a path shaped by pure luck, human care, and an unbroken chain of preservation that allowed it to be recognized for what it truly is. In the end, that's the real magic of the 1997 Pennies story. It's not just about money or rarity, it's about the improbable journey of a small, simple object through time, and how that journey can capture the imagination of the entire world. From the thunder of the minting press to the hush of the auction room, from a desk drawer to the record books, it proves that in numismatics, the most incredible treasures are often the ones hiding in plain sight.